You're watching the Metaphysical Mentor podcast with Michael Philpott. And we are recording. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me today on the podcast. Obviously, you know, the podcast is called the Metaphysical Mentor Podcast. And I'm your host, Michael Philpott. And today, hopefully I don't screw this up. I was actually worried about this. So, Maryn.
That's correct.
Oh, thank Lord. I was so worried about that. And I know we talked about before that. I was like, oh my God, I hope I don't screw up your name. And I'd be so devastated if I did. So I really appreciate you being on. So I have to thank Derek for connecting us, who was previously on the show. So it was.
And today's his birthday.
No way.
Happy birthday, Derek Loudermilk.
Yeah. So Derek, you'll hear this a little bit later because obviously he knows this is pre-recorded. So he'll be going, oh, thanks for the belated happy birthday. But we're saying happy birthday to you, Derek. Yeah, it was a really fun show. We got really into the premise of metaphysics and all the crazy things that he does with metaphysics. And really, I'm really excited about interviewing you. And I have to say, I have a lot of parallels. I was listening to your story on the podcast or on several podcasts that you've been on. And you talked about how, you know, you found your voice when you were younger. And myself, I actually went the opposite way. I didn't have a voice when I was younger. And it was because I had similar trauma in my childhood that really shut me down.
Exactly.
And I just listened to the parallel things. And what really stuck to me was when you talked about, because you're a performer and my background is in television. So I'm semi-performer, was anyways. And it's always interesting. You talked about how that mask that you had to put on. And I just found that it's like, oh my God, this person knows exactly what I'm going through. All the years that I've been on television, you had to put this mask on and it's always smile. Hey, I'm happy. I'm performing. Meanwhile, inside my internal mechanism is like going, oh gosh, what is going on here?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
it's on shutdown mode.
Yeah. So when did you decide to become a vocal transformational coach? Because I mean, it's just so profound. Like, you know, I didn't realize how profound our voices can be until I really started researching this and listening to your other interviews. I just thought, man, this stuff is so fascinating. So
it
when
is
did you make
beyond fascinating. It is literally, it's a medicine and a tool that we have as a birthright so we're made to feel so self-conscious around this. But if we could understand what its power is and what we can do with the vibrational frequency of our voice, we would step out of that whole thought process and just start to create the world. Like, that's how big it is. And so I didn't actually choose to become a vocal transformation coach. This was a job that I was given. You know, I like everybody else, had a talent and was convinced that I was supposed to be a star one day because you have a natural talent. And I believed for a long time that it was about me, right? So it really wasn't my choice at all to be a vocal transformation coach until I understood what the voice was and why it was so important for everybody to have theirs.
Yeah.
Right. We set a standard for like our stars. We idolize people who can step out with these talents and are trained and who have these abilities. But every single human that is not born mute, right, has a voice that is very important to their life. So when I ultimately understood that, and it came through psychedelics, it came through ayahuasca.
No way.
She showed me, well, if you heard on one of my podcasts, I was a professional singer who had a major breakdown because of the trauma and all the deeper insecurities that were sitting underneath the mask of like, oh, I can be competitive, I can perform, I have a gift, I have a talent, whatever, and you put it out there, but it's always in comparing yourself to others and having to win the audition, having to be better than the other. It's so competitive, right?
You're preaching to the choir, sister. You're preaching to the choir. Yeah.
So there's so much pressure that we get put under and so much that we put ourselves under and so much evaluation and judgment and so much around this faculty. So I stopped singing for 7 years. I stopped. Wow. And had to seek out other Maryns, like who else is Maryn, right? And I found a lot of amazing gifts that were hiding or that were never actually discovered or explored because the voice came out first. And it was like, there, she's got a voice, let's train that. And it was all on the spiritual path. It was my soul seeking itself. And honestly, in today's day and age, we are looking so much in the outside world because we are lacking spiritual connection. Our cultures are disappearing. I wonder how many people yesterday during Easter actually went through what traditionally you would go through, or even Passover, or if we're just like eating big meals now with our family and we're doing it for fun, or just for like family unit and maybe for tradition, but not really understanding why we have ties through these lines to these traditions, and why we keep our culture and our spirit alive through these lines, right? There are song lines in the traditions that I'm in, the Peruvian traditions, right? And the Native Americans, there's song lines that are carried through the generations. And through the singing, you actually keep that spirit alive and keep the culture moving. Anyway, I'm diverting to
No,
the
that's
fact
okay.
that
No, I mean, I always find it fascinating. I love people's stories. And this is one thing I liked about my particular show, is that we just go off in tangents. Like I have, let's say, this is the title. And usually the title, it starts out that way. And we discuss something totally different else. So we go off the deep end, we go somewhere else, but I absolutely love it. I mean, but it's so true. Like there really is that divisiveness, and we've lost a lot of that ability. Do you think is this because we've been so shut down for so long that it's so difficult for us to find our voices?
right, we don't know who we are, and we aren't actually engaged in our society to find out who we are either. We're engaged in our society to fit in and to be like everybody else. And if you don't in any way, you're made to feel less than. So then you have to buy something or figure out a way to try to fit into the things that people will approve of you, or think that you're okay, you're like them, or somehow not be ostracized or stick out too much in the wrong way, right? So there is I remember the question that you asked me, and it comes down to like being chosen to do this. Like, when did I decide to do this? And it was with the medicine. And I had stopped singing for 7 years because of all of that insecurity.
Was there
Because
one particular event that just kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back, and you just said, fuck this. Like, this is
yes.
just, yeah, like I'm done. I need to get out of this, like this craziness. Like, what do you remember that event? Like
Yeah,
what
I
was your,
was involved in a group that was working with a record label, and it was like the dream, we were this like R&B girl group, and it was the dream that we're all supposed to want, right? We had a big name who was there with us. We had like all this, and it was like, this was the moment, and everyone in my family was so proud of me that, oh my God, I'm working with this person. I like this whole thing. And that was not at all what was really happening. We were, being used. We were really being used. And we were young girls who wanted the dream, but there was drugs and all sorts of things involved in there that were not the dream. There was sexual harassment. There was all sorts of things that we hear about all the time in the big leagues, right? And I guess has always been, my great gift is that there's always been a soul inside of me that compromised myself to write about the breaking point. But when I got to the point where I knew this would not be retrievable, like you'll lose yourself if you go down this path, I've always been very blessed in my lifetime to be able to say, no, I have to stop now.
wow.
So I was really young when this happened. I was 19 years old, right?
Oh, really?
And I went on after I realized that this dream was a nightmare. It was a nightmare. I was lying to people. I was hiding things that I was doing. I was just trying, oh God, it was really a nightmare. And I was doing it because you're supposed to want to have this thing. This was the carrot that they dangled, and here was the moment and the contracts and the whole thing. It's like, this is it. But it wasn't it, for me at least, right? So my soul is not on this planet for fame. My soul is here for other reasons. And now that I know that, it's the greatest blessing of my life was finally finding psychedelics, right? In a therapeutic fashion. Not that I didn't know psychedelics in a recreational fashion, but to finally work with a shaman, with someone who holds a lineage back to that cultural line, right?
Yeah.
With someone who actually has a root in the earth and the crown open to the heavens, and can
Yeah.
hold the whole conversation, so that when you're with them, you can open your own conversation.
Yeah,
Right.
I've had so many conversations about the power of psychedelics, and I've actually had a medical doctor here from Canada, and she was on the show, and we talked about the power of psychedelics and how transformational they can be, and in a therapeutic setting too as well. We talked about different disorders and PTSD and alcoholism, and even what's the way she was talking about easing the death process too as well, making it a more comfortable and natural process about the death process. So it's really amazing how in the right environment, like the plant teachers or the plant medicine can really awaken you. So during your experience, was it like one particular experience when you were using the psychedelics and it basically the I guess either the teacher or the plant basically spoke to you and said, okay, this is what you need to do. And you got a voice. Let's just use that voice in a different direction. Was that how it kind of
Yes,
started?
it was my first ceremony with my main teacher who um, I actually had a vision of what I would call God, right? It didn't look like a person, or it just was an energy. It was almost like this white booming light that was like emanating into me. And it felt like my cells were separating and elevating, like everything was just becoming illuminated. And the feeling was that of unconditional love, right? That's the feeling of just like, everything's okay, everything's beautiful, you are loved. And that like all encompassing feeling of love and acceptance, right? And
I
I
mean,
was elevated. And then this booming voice came from that light. And the voice said, "You are ignoring a gift I've given you." And I said, "What's the gift?" Like, what's the gift? What do I have? And the voice said, "Your voice." And I immediately shrunk down from that feeling of unconditional love and acceptance to this like, I know, this almost pressurized version of like, I know I have a talent. I've always had it. It came from very young. And I know that there's an ability here, but I just have no idea why it's been given to me, because I tried, I had doors open. There are things I had successes come, but I just couldn't. I kept failing, and I just didn't want what I was being offered. And it just felt more like a pain, even though I loved it so much, than a gift, right?
yeah.
And the voice said, "I've given you your voice for healing.
Wow.
When you sing, you create a vibration and you heal yourself. When you sing out loud, right? Whoever is in the room, whoever's present, gets to receive that frequency, and they are healed by your healing."
Yeah. That's so profound. Yeah, I've
And
heard
I,
so many amazing things about the power of healing and through singing too as well. Now, I know you kind of bridge the gap between the kind of the sciencey bit and a little bit of the spirituality when it comes to voices and how they interact with there's like the certain frequency that affects the certain chakras within the body. Can you maybe talk about that? Because when I was looking at that, I was like, wow, my God, that's pretty cool. And then I found out like I don't know if it's the vocal scales, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do are all interconnected with the chakras too, that each one is connected to that layer. And as you
mhm.
sing each one vibrates at that level. So maybe you can just kind of touch on that a bit too, because I just find that really kind of super cool.
Yeah, sure. So from that vision, it seems like, okay, it's about your singing voice, but it's not really at all. It's about your voice in general. And your voice is your voice is your voice, as I say it. So if you learn how to use your voice, you will not only be able to use it for singing. Singing's a part of it, but for all those people listening at home who are like, but I'm not a singer, I don't want to sing. If you did this work, you probably would want to sing. I'll say that. But otherwise, nobody's forcing you to become a big singer, right? It's more about learning frequencies and learning how your voice operates. And when you learn the faculty of how the voice works, it's the same muscles and the same resonators for your singing voice as it is for your speaking voice. There literally is no difference. The fact that we separate them is what makes them function differently. But if you can speak, you can sing, right? So
Really?
really, so if you have an issue with pitch, there are people who have major pitch problems. They say, I can't hear tone. That most often is because you're not grounded and you're out of your circadian rhythm. And once you find the
Interesting.
earth again, you'll be able to really receive tone in a grounded way and be able to repeat tone and hear it properly.
That is so cool.
Yes, and anybody who wants to sing can. It's amazing. But back to the chakras. So
Yeah.
the chakras, the 7 main chakras of your body, are also resonators. They make sound. The same resonators that you open when you're learning how to sing, when you're doing scales with a singing teacher. right? You're learning how to use the right muscles to hold the right tone. And as the tone increases, it moves up the physical form. Your body goes from the root, your voice goes from the root to the crown of your body. I like to think of us as a wind instrument, right? We're a wind instrument. We use our breath and our muscle to create sound. We have a reed, so we're kind of a reed instrument because we have a reed that are two vocal folds that are sitting in our throat, and that's what the vibrational sound moves through. But we don't concern ourselves with the reed because we don't control the reed. The reed is already built into the instrument. So as far as I'm concerned, we leave the reed to do what it does, and we actually are just in charge of the wind. So if you look at a flute, right? A flute is a wind instrument. If you blow through the flute, the low notes are the easiest to access. Those would be the notes at the bottom of our body. The high notes require more wind, more breath, and more support. Anyone who plays a wind instrument knows that to get to the bottom of the flute, you need more breath support. It's exactly the same. To get to the top, the high notes, which are we think are up here, you're actually using the entire stream. So you need the body, the entire body, to make the voice. Now we're going to bring that to the chakra system.
All right.
So the chakras are developing from the time you're conceived, right? All the way up through 14 years of age, and then it continues to go around every 7 years in a life cycle. Each of these chakras has a grouping of nerve ganglion sitting at the point. So we call them esoterically like chakras, energy centers. But scientifically or anatomically, if you look at each of these chakra points, there's nerves that are in a group that are sitting at each of these points along the spinal column. Those nerves go to feed all the organs associated with that chakra or that area of the body, right? And all of the emotions that get stored in those parts of the body, because each of these organs are also storing emotions. Emotions are a secondary thought process. So really you're looking at how your psychology works. And when we talk about emotion storing, we're talking about how your psychology is storing in your body.
Interesting.
So when we start to work with the voice and we open up and activate all these parts, all these energy centers, you're actually using your own vibrational sound, just like you would use a singing bowl or a tuning fork or any of these tools that we use now in sound healing. You use your own vibrational sound, your own breath, which is your spirit, and your body, which is the earth's intelligence, and you are stimulating those nerves, which is then sending a signal to all the surrounding organs and all of the cells of that area of the body. And you're able at that moment to release whatever you need to release.
Find like people have like tremendous cathartic releases when they start doing this type of work, like just kind of on the floor bawling their eyes out because finally there's that release of emotion. Yeah, because I've tried other modalities where I've had those, a little bit of releases, but I just find, it makes sense. Like everything gets trapped in those specific centers, right? And especially, as we age, right, everything gets trapped and it's built up on the trauma of the years before, and it just keeps layering up on these layers and layers. That's why when you're doing this work, there's always seems to be like these layers that you have to peel off like an onion. You just kind of peel away and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Do you find by activating, just maybe starting with the root and allowing the deprogramming of the root through your voice to allow that enough shift that it's going to transform the second and then the third and then the fourth, and it just kind of builds up? Or do you have to kind of do it very more specifically? You start with the first, work on whatever's starting there, and then the first will start to influence the second and then go on from there. So how does that kind of work for you?
Yeah, so depending on when I'm working with students privately, I do more diagnostics and kind of, we start at the root always. There's a reason why we do that. But then as we see where blockages are, we can see where maybe we should approach from different chakras to get access to all the energy flow. But in general, if you work from the root up, your body will tell you when you hit something, right? It's really important to start at the root for me as a teacher, because the root is the earth herself, and that's your embodiment. And we are so detached from our root.
Oh yeah.
We are head all the way. And we need to be heart. And the heart is actually the culmination of the head and the root. It's both, it's all of this information coming up towards the center of our gravity, which is actually our heart chakra. We're heart-centered beings. In our current stage of development, our highest function is when we're centered at our heart. I think that, generations and generations from now, we might move towards being up here somewhere, but we can't get there until we actually can master this first, and to get there in a way that won't be destructive, I'd like to say. Yeah. So the root chakra is the earth herself. It's the Kundalini life force energy. It's how we create the physical reality, seemingly physical. We understand that the world is just energy, and we, through our senses, experience it as something solid. But the earth energy, the body intelligence, which is our senses, right? She gives us the ability to create the physical world. She is the physical world. Our spirit comes in to have that incredible communion and to be able to create a physical reality, a seemingly physical reality. So each human being has the power of creation. We've heard this, and many different great teachers have told us this, right? We are the dreamers of this dream. So having your voice empowered means having your expression, which is your contribution and how you actually contribute your soul to the world, put out into the world so that the world can reflect you within it, right? And when we are not connected to the root, we're actually missing the connection to the access point of bringing in all of the Shakti power of the planet to be a creative being. So if we don't have that connection, we can't heal ourselves. We're just stuck in like limbo.
You think for the most part, I'm sure there's probably a figure there, but you probably think that most clients or most people that we have like disruptive, first chakra, first center, energy center issues. It's that programming that we have. And that's what's it's basically, if you want to call it, it's the root cause of all of our problems is that disassociation.
It's the root invitation, right? Because the root chakra is your genetics. It's your soul contract. It's the family you've come into. And it's also your purpose for being here. It's the contract you signed with the earth to come. And you came because of two reasons. One, because she needs you here. Because of your high level of cosmic consciousness that incarnates, right? She actually needs you on this planet. Our species is co-creating reality. We are more powerful than we can even imagine when we actually start to wake these chakra points up, right? But the second is your bloodline. Like, you've come here as part of a tribe, right? And your bloodline goes to the entire bloodline, because at one point we were all one genetic code. And then those fragmented genetic codes are our own thing. So we come in with some work to do.
Yeah, right? That's for sure. Yeah, some of us more than others. I can tell you that. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I just love that. I love how the idea of not only that Mother Earth, she needs you, like bringing, like, okay, she needs your energy, like that. I mean, I got goosebumps when you were saying that. I thought, never even thought about it that way. I just had it more from my egocentric way. I was like, oh shit, I got to be here. This is part of my contract. Yeah, this is, hey, I got to live out some karma, because I was such an asshole in a previous life that I got to redo this whole thing again. And it's really, there's so much more to it.
It's so true. When we're babies, right? The very first thing, you've probably heard me say this on a podcast, this is something that's really important for us to remember. The very first thing we did when we came to the world was cry. And if we didn't cry, they would hit us. The doctors had I don't think they do this anymore because I think of laws now, but they used to hit you or poke you or prod you or something to make sure that you had a voice, right? To make sure that you were developed enough, right? And so I've heard adults very often say, the baby's crying, thinking like, oh God, not life again. I'm a human. There's this, right? It's what they think. But that's not why we cry. We cry because we breathe our soul into the body. The body wakes up in its intelligence. If you don't breathe, if you don't take that first breath in, which is a deep diaphragmatic breath that fills your entire body with prana, with your soul, if you don't take that breath, you don't have life. If you take that breath, it activates the intelligence of the entire body. And your first primary instinct is to scream out, I am here.
Wow.
to let it be known that you are audible, like you have a vibrational frequency, the body works with the spirit, and now there's sound. And that's what your voice is, your spirit and your body. Your voice is, I always say, the soul's dynamic life urge for truthful expression.
Yeah, that is, I mean, I love that, you know, I just love how that just, just the hearing that, like literally, it makes so much sense, but it's so profound. Like, it's just another way of looking at that. Now, a lot of this knowledge that you gained, is it just something that you learned through your shaman coach, or your shaman coach, I guess you wouldn't call it, your shaman, I guess, and learning that, or is it just something that
I've
you already?
learned nothing through my shaman except for how to hold incredible space and how to like worship, how like be like witness a master. Aside from that, I've learned everything from the medicine herself.
Oh, really? Wow, she taught you all that. Wow, that
Well,
is
no,
profound.
no, not all of it, not all of
Oh,
it. I have a long life of choices I've made, of different studies that I've done. After I decided that I wasn't going to sing anymore, I said I took 7 years off. I took a wild ride. I like traveled to Australia, learned how to meditate, got into chanting. That's where I first found Sanskrit, which a lot of my vocal transformation program is based around. And got to, there were lots of different experiences. We'll just say lots of choices, odd choices. I learned body work, I learned healing, all these things. This is long before the medicine, right? Before ayahuasca. And so when I finally sat with her, she said to me, she showed me my life and said, do you, this choice and this and this, and when you went there and did that. And I was like, yeah, I was just kind of on this journey, like searching for myself, I guess, right? And she asked me, do you wonder why you made all those random choices? And I was like, yeah, I actually at one point was on an Agnihotra ashram, which is an ashram where you burn cow dung and ghee and rice in fires and do mantras over them all day. Like I was, how does a Jewish girl from Rockland County, New York end up in Cessnock, Australia, like burning dung fires? How does that happen, right? I still burn them to this day because they are magic and powerful. But how does that happen in life? Like how amazing life can be. And I've often had that reflection of like, what am I doing here? Right. And she said it to me in my ceremony. She was like, have you ever wondered why you made so many of those random choices? And of course. And she showed me, and this is how the program came to be. She showed me a full depiction of all the tools that had come together through those choices to create a system that can unlock the potential of the human voice.
wow, that is really profound. That is really cool. Now, you know, really something that's really interesting is the chanting. Now, through your studies with chanting, and that's how you kind of use, I guess, how you would learn, and that what you use in your system is to basically help. Is it basically to help release each individual area within the body? And as you work up the chanting scale, I guess we call it a scale. I'm just guessing, but as you work up that up those various levels, is it basically working with the chakras too, or the energy centers as well? Is that what the chanting does with the
Yes.
Sanskrit?
So the primary, I call it the spine or the of the program, is to open up and awaken each chakra. Within each chakra, there is memory, emotional memory, the thought processes, the nervous system is storing a lot in these areas, right? So we wake up each of the centers one by one by going through your life story and how you came to the voice you're currently using. The voice you're currently using is riddled with editors and dormancies, like areas that you won't ever go into, blockages, atrophy. There's lots that is happening within your own voice. And it's all the program that you were given, what you experienced from your life experience, like what your senses took in from the world creates your thought process and who you think you are, and what's right and what's wrong and what's okay and what's not okay, and what you should do and what you shouldn't do, and all of that. So depending on how you were raised and educated and who you were surrounded by and what your influences are, is how you come to use your voice. So we go into the beginning and go through your stories, chakra by chakra by chakra, by how you develop, because your chakra system is developing as you age. That's how it's working. 0 to 14 is how is the first 2 life cycles, they would say, right? Because we live in 7-year cycles, 7 chakras, and the first 2 are developing the entire system. So everyone is somewhere stuck and stopped somewhere between 0 and 14. Everyone you talk to, you can find them too. Once you know this, you can see, oh yeah, I'm talking to a 10-year-old. Oh, I'm talking to a 14-year-old. When you actually understand what is going on psychologically in that development, you can see where people are, right?
Yeah.
And what we get to do with the program is we go in and we use our voices to open up the nervous system and whatever is holding on there, and we clear it so that we can have the full frequency of our voice there again. It's an entire rebirthing process. It's your own soul rebirthing itself and keeping all of the things that you want. We're not telling you to lose yourself completely. You can lose as much of yourself if you want to, and you can keep as much as you want to, but you get the opportunity to fully flood your body with spirit again and recharge. So there are a lot of great teachers who talk about how the chakra system is functioning in every human being, but really at like a small capacity to what it could be.
Yeah.
We're probably at about 1/3 of our power.
Yeah, I've heard something similar to that. Yeah, where it's
and if you go in and wake it up, we start to become these like very, very vibratory people. And that is electromagnetism, which the entire world is made up of. So what you're bringing into your life is your electromagnetism. You are, by your magnetic component, drawing towards you at all times what it is you need, and repelling from you, just like a magnet would, two opposites would, what you don't need.
Yeah, wow, that's so profound. You know, it reminds me of very similar with Dr. Joe Dispenza. Have you heard of him?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and his work, he talked about the energy centers and the frequency and the magnetism and how important that is. And it's just, I just love listening to this stuff. I just find it so fascinating. But it also for me too as well, and I think a lot of my listeners, is it just kind of brings a recognition. It's like somehow there's something in the back there. Guy goes, yeah, Maryn's making sense here. This, there's something, I don't know what it is, but it just makes sense. And there's something about that. And I think a lot of us can relate to being on the spiritual path, that all these blocks and issues. And it's interesting. I know myself, I'm just finding my voice after so many years. Like I was in the psychic closet for years. There's no way it was COVID that really kind of forced me to go.
Amazing.
To go
There's
inward.
So much to thank that virus for.
Yeah, there really was. I just went through just prior to COVID, it was just like my life was a shitstorm. I just thought, I can't believe there's more stuff happening to my life. And it's like, I need to just kind of change around. And I've been doing readings secretly for years. And I really didn't talk to anybody about it because just a few of my friends knew. And I was hidden. I was basically afraid to speak up about issues like metaphysics and psychic abilities and what's going on with me. And I just thought, oh, screw this. Like, I'm supposed to be this guy. This is what everybody saw me as. And I thought I had to be that kind of, that personality. And I was fucking miserable. I hated, I really didn't enjoy being that person. And it wouldn't allow me to express myself. And it wasn't till I started doing this podcast to find my voice. And it was kind of like, oh my God, really? I could talk about this stuff, openly talk about this stuff publicly around the world. And
I'd like to share something with you about how important your voice actually, everyone's voice, yes, but in meeting you and knowing what you do. Another shaman of mine shared something really, really important to me that I feel like I want to offer you right now.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
In the shamanic tradition, they sing ikaros, right? They're songs that are given to the shaman by the plants themselves. The spirit of the plant, when the shaman is engaging with the plant, gives the shaman a song. In some cases, it's passed down through a shamanic lineage, but originally that song was given to a shaman who had a direct connection with a spirit. And this song comes through. And anybody who works with the plants, for any lengthy period of time, might have had their own interaction this way, where suddenly there's a song. They have no idea why they're singing this melody or what the words might even be or what they mean, but they are not controlling it. The words are coming through them, and they're in awe of like, what is happening to me? Like there's a person watching as there is a takeover occurring by a spirit, right? And this is a great gift. It's an incredible blessing. So after one of these moments, I had a shaman explain to me that Our voice is how spirits who are not in this realm at this time, like in this dimension, I'm going to say, this density, how they can actually be effective on this density. So when we sing these ikaros, or when we sing songs of that is how the plant itself, that is how the spirit of the plant, which is all the ethereal, it's the breath, it's the part that we can't see and touch, right? How that can come through. They require a human voice in order to be able to activate other humans to work in those areas, or just to even like come to the physical realm, right? So the reason why I'm sharing this with you is because you are a medium of that. So who you're actually bringing through, who you happen to have the antenna up for, that can say, hey, you can hear me. I can hear you. I have a message for somebody. Your voice is of the utmost importance, because that's how that spirit, that being who is still part of this conversation, but is not able to actually hold their loved one or explain what needs to, or like make the physical imprint, can then give the message so that that can happen on earth.
Yeah.
But it requires your voice to do so. It requires the spirit that you have within a body to carry the message, right? And that works in the shamanic realms as well. So when I hear you say, I felt like I was blocked and I couldn't say anything. I mean, you are one of how many people can you think? I mean, I'm saying it's the vast majority of our world, our modern world, where we are made to feel like what is naturally occurring with us, what our consciousness is capable of, is literally edited to a point where we're not allowed to actually give our contribution. Your great gift is being a medium. That is a gift that most people would die for. Really, they would just love and could probably be cultivated. But if you have a natural ability to do that, then your consciousness has to do that. That is something that you do while you're here.
Yeah, and I struggled with that. I struggled using it. I really did. I shut it off for the longest time. And, friends kept encouraging me. He's like, Mike, what are you doing? I was like, I don't know. I just did. I don't know. I didn't feel it. I guess probably because when I started doing readings, I just didn't feel really that connection as much as I was connecting to the thing. I felt like there was a lot of wounding still that in myself that I wasn't healing. And I just thought to myself that I was, connecting with people, helping them, but for somehow I was still feeling empty my own self. And I think I needed to learn how to kind of fill myself back up and, look at myself and start healing myself. And I thought, what good am I going to be to an individual when my own stuff is just getting in the way of the messages? So I really took it to heart and really dove into my own healing, really to allow myself to be a better, clearer vehicle so that I could express spirit's voice a little bit better. And it's been a magical ride. And I mean, I'm still kind of like, I used to like not even think about it, but now it's like, he's like, holy shit, did that just happen? Oh my God. Yeah. Like you just kind of you get a little more amazed. Like, I mean, we deal with the woo woo and we're kind of used to seeing the woo woo. So it's not like, it's like people go, oh my God, this happened. It's like, yeah, I've been there, done that. But when you start seeing it again and you start realizing with fresh eyes, there is that little bit of magic that kind of happens and you kind of go, dang, this is pretty stellar. I really like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's what I invite people with the voice work. It's one of my big things. Can we get you back to the magic? This world is a miracle. You are a miracle. Everything that's happening here is an energetic miracle. And that idea that when you're born that you cry like, oh, the earth again, are you kidding me? Like we have access to the full elemental plane, like all the elements that make up physical matter, humans have sovereignty over. We can create things. Like we're building cars out of plastic now. We can take anything that we want. Anything that appears here, we can use our imagination, our high levels of intelligence, our emotions, and our instincts, the three human brains, right? We can use them to invent and create something that the world has not seen before.
Yeah, that's
right?
so true.
And every one of us can do this, not just the ones who've gone to college and gotten all their degrees and knows how things work, because we know how they work with the intelligence that is innate within us when we can connect to all of those. So we see in our world this leaning towards intelligence of the mind, like know the mind, but we're cutting out, I believe, the two more important of the brains, which is our heart center, which is the most powerful energy of our body. And we're cutting out the gut. which
Yeah.
is the part of us that's connected to the planet and has been through the womb brain all the way back to the beginning of humanity. So the gut is storing the intelligence of the earth and how our bodies function. It's the most powerful brain in the human body. If our gut goes awry, our emotions go crazy and our brain gets foggy,
Yeah.
right? It's the most important brain we have.
Yeah.
And so we have the probiotics and we have all the gut doctors. Thank everyone for going out there and actually speaking this truth. But if you actually look at that, that tells the story of what matters the most, and it is our root. Our root connects us to the planet, and our breath pulls the spirit to the root. That is what creates the cry. That is what creates the authentic voice. When you cried when you were a baby, you didn't cry because you had something you needed to prove. And you didn't cry because you had emotions, because you don't have emotions then. Emotions are a mind thing. You cried out of instinct and out of need, like deep need. You needed food, you needed water, you needed to be changed, you needed to be held, you needed to be moved. You were lying in one spot for too long. You were sick. You cried because your body needed something, and your voice was a way to express that need. And if you were lucky enough, then someone loved you enough to come take care of that need for you.
Yeah.
Right? After that, when we move into the second and third, which is what's surrounding the gut brain there, the instinct, that's where we get into the emotional plane. That's where we start the mind, the thought processes actually begin, and we start to think about things. And that's where the emotions start. Right? So for a human, for us, the most important work to do is root chakra, second chakra, third chakra. When we've done that work, the rest takes care of itself in a very beautiful way, but it's where we're storing all of the old unprocessed shit.
Yeah, that's me. And I'm just right now, I'm just going through I guess I'd say an awareness or even more of a shifting into my root. And it's like, I've been having all these back pains, all these like hip pains, leg pains. And it's just like this consistent thing. And it's just like, I know this is shifting as part of everything else that needs to be healed, because a lot of my original wounding was during that time, that process. You know, like you talk about 0 to 14. Yeah, I can look back from those particular years, and like 0 to 7 were my most traumatic years. And then
that's first through third. That's what it is. Those are the first three chakras.
Yeah, the first three. And that's basically, I had so many physical issues because of that continued on into my adulthood. And I realized it's so important. Now, do you use plant medicine as part of your training?
When I work with students, I have retreats where we use plant medicine.
Now,
are
there
and
retreats?
not all of the retreats have them.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I guess, because you're based out of the States. So are the retreats localized in the States, or do you have to go out of country?
We have retreats all over. Yeah. So the medicine is in places where it's legal, typically. But we use medicines that are legal in other states. We do things in the States, but only the ones that are legal to be used.
Yeah.
But we do have retreats also that don't have them. So for people who don't work with medicine, there's no reason why this work will not 100% work for you without it, because the medicine is it's a secondary thing. She just showed me what was already existing. You don't need the medicine to heal yourself with your voice and to find your voice and to learn about your voice and to change your whole life and rebirth yourself. You do not need the medicine. She's an incredible bonus when you do come to a retreat with her, because she takes all that work and just amplifies it and makes it easier to break through. Right?
I almost think that it would be beneficial to work on the self first and do the work first, and then proceed maybe, and again, I'm not a doctor, and proceed maybe to work with plant medicine. Like, do your work first, get a good solid foundation, heal stuff, just so that when you do have that experience, it's like you say, there's that more uptake into it as well. And I just find that just so much more fascinating. Now, do you find that a lot of the work you're doing is with with women versus men?
No.
No.
I have a really mixed bag, and I work with people who are in all walks of life, all professions, people that you would not expect. And it's funny, she's a vocal transformation coach. She helps people like heal their trauma around their voice. And I get calls from so many different kinds of people who say that once they hear that, they're there's something in that for me, and they need to know more about like how this works. And it's incredible. I am so proud of the men of this world, right? And so I talk about this a lot, how the Me Too movement and the toxic masculinity that we're always speaking about, we can't heal toxic masculinity unless we can acknowledge divine masculinity. And I'm really tired of hearing about the toxic. I'd much rather encourage the divinity. And I am watching men, I mean, so many men. I teach men's circles. I show up in all the ways for men because we need them to awaken. We don't need to punish them. We need them to actually step into their balance. And as much as there's toxic masculinity, there is so much toxic femininity happening as well, whatever those two words even mean, right? And we're at a time in our history where that conversation is so big. What is the female? What is the male? What are the names, the pronouns? What do I identify as? And I really see that this is like the culmination of our evolution. Because there's nothing wrong with identifying as a man. There's nothing wrong with identifying as a woman. There's nothing wrong with identifying however you want to identify. But when I look at my great teachers of yoga, right, we're talking about yoga now, Yogananda Paramahansa, even Jesus Christ himself. If you look at these people who are our great spiritual teachers, you almost wouldn't know what they are. There is an androgyny to them. There is an embracing of the feminine and the masculine within them. And this applies for the females as well, right? There's a balancing of the two forces. And in yoga teaching, it's all about the two energies, the Shiva and the Shakti energy coming up in equal and then crossing over the Sushumna, crossing over the consciousness, the third eye, in perfect balance with one another, right? Mm-hmm. This is the yogic teachings of centuries old of like what it means to become enlightened. And right now, the human race is a little bit caught on the physical expression of these things. We're a little bit caught, I mean, yeah, even the yoga that we're doing is mostly postural yoga. It's mostly the body postures. It's mostly about the physical form. Meanwhile, this voice work that I do is about 5,000 years old information about yoga of the voice. But the yoga postures are about 300 years old max.
Yeah.
Right. So this idea of, not that there's anything wrong with them, they're amazing and they work, it's all really good. But you see how our Western world is really, really focused outward. We're really focused on how to get something from the most superficial level in hopes that it's going to do something to positively affect our internal, when there's a whole pathway where if we go in, we can affect the whole external from the within, right? And the idea right now of the men, you asked me this question, like showing up to feel their emotions. This is enormous. The men that I work with
just hold on for a second. I'm just going to interrupt you because I want guys, because I have a fairly large guy, male audience, and I want you to really understand this. And I want you to listen to this. And it's really important, as much as I love the woo-woo, I'm still a guy's guy. And I think it's really important that guys, the male audience out there is listening to this. It's okay to do this. And it's something more empowering. So I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I just thought, I'm just going to just emphasize what you're talking about because I think it's really important. Sorry.
Thank you. Yeah. No, thank you. It is of the utmost importance because the women are becoming toxically masculine because they are feeling that their emotions have to be held in now too. And so as I really see it, the men are holding the key right now. The women have always had the intuition and the emotional balance and the nurturing. We get that, but there's a growth right now within our society that has to occur. And when it occurs within the masculine, it will shift and change everything. Men are powerful beings, right? So what we're seeing is the issue that women, because we feel like we've been disempowered, are now trying to become the men in some way, right? And there's nothing wrong with any of this. I'm not judging anybody. I'm just saying, as you see these, the energy has to balance.
Yeah.
The earth is balance. If you look at the I Ching and you look at the ancient wisdoms of these cultures before us that are like spot on, right? It's all a yin yang. that symbol, that yin yang of the light and the dark. Earth is a polarity, and it's always those two, the light and the dark, the daytime and the nighttime, and the positive and the negative forces. It's electromagnetic, positive, negative. That's what we have signed on for, right? But what's happening with the men, and this is what you asked them to listen to, so I'm gonna, there has been a generational wound, mostly with men being sent to war and having major traumas, with men being told that they are the ones who need to be logical and fix things, the providers, right? The wife stays home and takes care of the children. The husband has to go out and build the empire and come home with the money necessary or the means necessary for the family to happen. And inevitably, with every student that I work with, because it's with every human being in the world, the second chakra is where we hit the major issues of our life that we live with today. Second chakra is the house of sensuality, sexuality, creativity, relationships, and is run by the father, ruled by the father. And we can see just with the sexual imbalances and the sexual questioning and all of the sexual misconduct and everything that's going on. And that's only one piece of it. It's mostly about our relationships and how we relate to the world. The father, the masculine presence in your life was of the utmost importance then. So when you look at generations of men who are traumatized and who are not allowed to process that, and war is a huge one because that's epigenetic. It gets passed down whether your father was in your life or not. It's in your genes when you have that level of trauma. And I actually have a student who just left the VA after many years because she realized there's no helping them the way the system is set up to help them, because what they need is something so deep. But there's this feeling of, this happened, you just hold on to that. You don't process it. You don't heal it. You don't go into the tears you need to cry, the screaming you need to let out. You don't have to be held like a baby, because that's what you felt like when the trauma occurred. And for most people at second chakra, it's 6 months to 3 years, right? Wow. So we're looking at a baby that needs to be held. That's really what we're looking at. That wasn't held properly. That was either punished for something that was happening naturally or wasn't allowed to have its temper tantrum, right? Yep. And then any traumas that happen through your senses, because that's all second chakra, how we receive the world through our senses, they all just get compacted and stored. And when a man cannot cry, it becomes toxic. It becomes like acid in their veins instead of water that can purify, right?
Oh, I really like that analogy.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty profound, because first, if you look at disease and what men suffer the most, you look back at that and you use that type of analogy, just eating away at you from the inside out. Is that like, it's like an acid versus a water. And and basically heart attacks, strokes, things like that, and yes, cancer too as well. Like, I mean, it's so profound. Wow, that's so interesting. Wow. I really appreciate you saying that, because I always find it interesting. When I was looking at this show, and I thought vocal transformational coach, and how profound it is, because you do so many, there's so many things that you healed and help people heal through this work. And it's about finding their authentic voice. And I thought to myself, like, we live in a society that has been shutting down the voice lately. It's been in a society where we're shutting down people to speak. And I thought, how do we rectify that? We're trying to find our authentic voice. And there's just so much of this, I guess, the powers to be are trying to silence us so much now. It just seems like the more we try to speak up, the more we try to use our voice in a very healthy, productive way, the more we're trying to get silenced. So how do we balance that? I know it's a pretty deep question.
Anyway. I mean, this is a very simplified answer, that you have to do it anyway. And that if enough of us actually do it, there'll come a point where the tipping scale will happen, where the silencing won't be able to occur. And there will be the few brave who will do it anyway, and will start to be the voice of reason, emotion, connection, spirit on this planet, that will start to wake up. And really, it's about remembering. It's all about remembering, because the program that we've been put through, that has created all the editors and all the fear, and all the doubt and all the shame and all the guilt and all the things that like block our voice, we've been put through that very specifically so that a few have power while others are just doing what they're supposed to do to keep those people in power, right? And ultimately, confidence, which is the main key essential ingredient for anyone to have their voice, personal confidence, it's not ego. Ego is either arrogant or insecure. I mean, of course, our egos are present at all times, but confidence is being very comfortable with who you are, all of it. A confident person knows all the things that all the gifts they have and all the things that are wonderful about them and can acknowledge their greatness, but also can acknowledge all the areas in their life that still need to be worked on and all the imperfections and the areas where growth is possible. And guess what? 100% of human beings fall into the category of growth is possible because everything is always growing on Earth. The story of Earth is growth, evolution, which means there's not a single person on this planet, no matter how much they want to convince you that they're perfect and they know it all, that actually does. And for some of us, emotional intelligence is way more important than mental intelligence. So I have students all the time who think, well, I wasn't good in school and now I'm insecure, but I'm an empath. And they're calling that a curse, but I'm like, you feel instead of think, like, thank you, come on, tell us what you feel, right? Or I'm a survivalist. Like, I know how the earth works and I know how to forage and I know how to hunt and do those things. Thank you, you understand the earth and the ecosystems and all of that. Like, hallelujah, you don't need to necessarily know the chemical compounds and everything. You actually just know how the intelligence functions. There are so many different intelligences that we can all encompass. We can have them all, which we do if we wake them all up, but some of us are just geared in different ways, right? So basically, to know that you have, to remember that you are meant to be here is the first step. People who think they have been given horrible stories, I always say you're the strongest souls who have come to overcome the greatest odds. But it's only the strength of your soul that shows that story. It's not a karmic punishment, which a lot of people want to say. It's a real challenge. It's like universe said, you can come in and handle this, and you can handle it. We are only given what we can handle. And then we listen to others to determine for ourselves what we value, what we think, what we believe. And that starts so young.
Yeah, that's
so what we have to remember is who we are is to reconnect to the earth, to our gifts, to our heart, to our logic, to our reasoning, to our gut, to all these brains, and then to trust that just the mere fact that you were born, just the mere fact that you were given a body and a voice means that you have the right to be here, and you have a mission and a purpose, and you should be using that voice. When I said before, the soul's dynamic urge for truthful expression, the soul only wants to be able to express its experience in authenticity, in the radical truth of what is happening. And every time we've been made to feel like we're not allowed to, we're literally dwindling our life force energy. Our soul is becoming diminished. And that's where I said to you before, those chakras are not functioning at their highest capacity, mostly because we're not breathing correctly, like taking our breath into the body, and the breath is the spirit. So we're not spirited anymore, right? We're not spirited. We're doing whatever is going to keep us safe and keep us under the radar. Just don't get me in trouble.
That was me. Like, I mean, I was always, and even when I was doing the show, I was always paranoid of how, if I said something stupid, are the vocal or the censoring police are going to come after me. And I mean, I've already kind of did once, YouTube, thank you. And it was just something, I didn't think it was that sensitive, but apparently if you use the word COVID in your,
they check, they find you. Yeah.
They find you. And it was very, and we had documented information, we had studies, we had research, but apparently, I guess I stepped over the line, and I am now blacklisted on various levels on YouTube.
Mazel tov.
Yes,
Congratulations.
thank you. Yes,
Really.
I've hit it big when I realized
That's exactly, when you've been canceled, it means you have power at this point in the game, right? It means there's something you're saying that they're not allowed to hear, right? And I love this. I love this so much. The people that I have coming into my inbox with the quotes that keep me going, the people that have holidays that are named after them on our national calendars, these are people who didn't give a fuck what other people are thinking about them, and who are instead know their value and that they have a truth that they want to tell the world, right? And so I am here, like my job as a vocal transformation coach, and like what I've accepted is to take the platform myself, right? To say every one of you has power. And it's the fact that you're not waking up to it that's allowing the rest of the world to go on as it is. Yeah. And I'm not saying revolt, like I'm not leading a march, and I'm definitely a nonviolent I'm a Buddhist practitioner. I'm a woman of nonviolence. It's not about the outside as much as it is about the inside, because when you start to trust your own instincts and start to listen to your own truth, your truth is in alignment with the law of love, the law of one. Yeah. Every single one of us boils down to that.
Yeah.
And all these other thoughts that are negative in nature and judgy and fearful and all that stuff, that's all part of the psychological program, and it all comes from early childhood abuse or trauma or something. It doesn't even have to be abuse. It could be as simple as losing your parents in a store for 10 minutes and not knowing where they are, and then suddenly you find them, but you had a moment of like, and that's enough, right? So when anybody listening at home, if you hear, well, I wasn't abused, I don't know what happened to me, nobody has made it through to 14 years without some kind of emotional thing that has affected you on a level. It could even be something you saw on television, right?
That's
so all we have to do right now is remember who we are.
And that's
the divine birth, right? The divine birth of the consciousness itself on the planet. And then we have to decide for ourselves what we want to see this world become.
Yeah.
And empower our own energy fields and our own voice to live that way. And once we live that way and voice that way and express that way, we will have the ripple effect on everything around us.
Yeah, that is so profound, and it's so true. Like, it just starts with the individual. People get so worried about, how do I change the world? I think maybe it was Gandhi. I probably butchered this quote, but I think if you want to see the profound change in the world, change yourself.
Yes.
I think that's what he said.
It is Gandhi. Yes, be the change, right? Be the
change. Yeah, that's right. And I think that's really, so important. And I always, stipulate this, through the podcast there and all the guests I've had on. It's really about doing your own work. It's really getting to the meat and potatoes and healing yourself. And that's the greatest gift you can give the world, is to heal yourself and find that authentic voice and transform that. And Maryn, I have to ask, where can people find you? So if somebody wanted to take one of your retreats or have you as their personal coach to help them heal themselves, transform their voice, where can they find you?
I also want to add a third thing to that. And I don't know when this is going to be aired, but on May 2nd, I don't know if it's going to air this quickly. There is an online course that is a group is starting on May 2nd, where we're going to go through all this work together online. And that's like I'm going to say the least expensive and most approachable way to work with me, right? But and it also is forming community around people who are doing this work together, so this can actually reach more people. It's profound. We have had 2 rounds of it so far, and people are changing. It's a 4-month program. It's a quicker version of what I do one-on-one, and the results are happening. So it's definitely worth checking out if you're an online person. Right. The retreats are ridiculously built for breakthroughs. I call them expeditions, not retreats, because they're classes. Like you're not coming to relax, you're coming to have breakthroughs. So
Nice.
you will have breakthroughs. I guarantee that. They are amazing. I love running retreats. And then if you want to work with me, if you know you need like a one-on-one teacher and you know you need like the grit to get in, and it takes about 1.5 years, the program that I run. So you're going to come in and like commit that this is the 1.5 years I find my voice and heal my life. You can go to www.vocal-transformation.com, and all the options of all those things will be on there. Yes. And then my Instagram is vocal_transformation. So you can find me on Instagram as well.
Okay. I'll have all that information in the podcast description. So if you're listening to the podcast on Spotify, Apple, and everywhere else that it's listed, just scroll down. You just, click on, instead of just clicking on the episode itself, just scroll down and I'll have Maryn's information there. And if you're actually watching this YouTube video and YouTube actually allows me to put it up, just scroll down in the information little section. I'll have all the information in the bottom there. So you can have Maryn's information there and do as well. Now, unfortunately, this is pre-recorded. So this will actually be probably airing in August, probably, I'm just going to say.
Oh, okay.
But I'm
So we'll cut that out.
I'm sure because of the popularity and the amazing work that you do, you're probably going to have other ones too as well. So
yes, of course.
If you're listening to this, just check out the information. I think it's super valuable. I think it's really an important time in our lives that we really need to find that authentic voice and, heal ourselves and transform the world. And I so appreciate you being on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me. It was so nice to be here.
Yeah, it was absolutely beautiful and a lot of amazing work there, and highly recommend it. Get out there and heal yourself and heal your voice. So I'm just going to close off the podcast here. This has been the Metaphysical Mentor Podcast with Michael Philpott. Thank you so much for joining me, and goodbye for now.